rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gary hopefully will always have an impact on this because we can never synchronize in the middle. No extra cost.
No, there is no comment. Oh my gosh.
I know. Okay.
Some years.
So, do we have any additions or modifications to the agenda?
Yes, I have a couple of issues.
Call roll first. Sorry, you can call roll.
Okay.
Councilmember Garberding?
I am here.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Cave?
Here.
Councilmember Olivera?
Here.
Councilmember Putnam will be absent. Councilmember Steiger?
Here.
Councilmember Walker?
I am here. Now, Councilmember Steiger,
Okay, I have employee benefit policy and hotel motel committee.
Hotel motel? Sounds good. Anything else? Okay. So first up, Park Board Earth Day and Pacific Days event.
Hello, it's that time of year again. I've come forward with two resolutions for the City Council to consider. One of them is related to the Park Board's participation in the Earth Day event, which is coming up on April 25th, we hope. And the second one has to do with the Park Board's participation in the Pacific Days event. I can read the summary. What I'll just encapsulate, to engage the community with their parks, open space, and trails. The Park Board is co-sponsored with other organizations such as Friends of the Lower White River and Pacific Partnerships an annual Earth Day, which is actually April 22nd, event for many years. This year's Earth Day network theme is It's Our Turn to Lead, by example, it's implied. Pacific's event is still being planned. Suggestions include park cleanup, recycling and trash drop-off, a lunch, and other activities to involve all members of the community. It is scheduled for April 25th, 2015. And that is resolution number 15-228. Second resolution number 15-229. Pacific Partnerships has annually hosted Pacific Days for several years. This event provides community building, tourism, and participation in the city parks. The Park Board would like to co-sponsor 2015 events with Pacific Partnerships in Pacific City Park. The event is slated to be held July 10th through 12th, 2015. Recommended action is discussion of, I still got the insurance in there. I think those issues have been resolved. But insurance issues, including the Pacific Days Parade and other events, discussion of city funds available for Earth Day, Pacific Days, and other community events, and of course approval of both resolutions as necessarily amended. So my motion for consideration is to approve resolution number 15-228, Pacific Park Board participation in an April 25th, 2015 Earth Day event, and to approve resolution number 15-229, Pacific Park Board participation in the 2015 Pacific Days event.
Take these one at a time. Does council have any questions on Earth Day? So I know you had mentioned a monetary contribution from the city. Is that still kind of TBD?
Well, from what I can gather, Pacific Partnerships has no money set aside for that. At this point in time, we're considering doing a project to help remove invasive weeds down at Pacific Meadows Park, which is something we started doing shortly after it was established and then kind of stopped doing. And we're hoping that Pacific Partnerships can approach someone for some pro bono help at the event to identify what is a good native plant and what is an invasive. Otherwise, it's just blackberries and garbage. But there is no money set aside for that. I'll just say for Earth Day. So it's going to be a little, activities will be limited by funds.
So, any other questions or council pleasure on that resolution?
Move it forward.
Okay. So Pacific Days event, this is 15-229. Questions for staff?
It's being primarily planned by Pacific Partnerships, and I will be attending the meeting next Tuesday to also speak with them about Earth Day and what we can pull together for that, and also Pacific Days and where they're at with that.
Council pleasure?
I did have a question. A lot of times, the Auburn Chamber of Commerce gets involved in and helps provide some funding for some of these. I know they're obviously in Auburn, but I'm wondering if Algona and Pacific ever gets anything out of them.
It's a good opportunity.
That's something to look into.
Yeah, maybe recommend that to the partnerships.
Chamber of Commerce.
To approach the Auburn Chamber of Commerce for Earth Day, or I imagine.
I was thinking Pacific Days. I'm not
Okay,
so sure.
that would make more sense because Earth Day communities tend to have their own kind of event. So I would mention that to them as far as Pacific Days. I think we're hoping for some tourism dollars for Pacific Days.
That's one of the things, Richard and I have been looking into this, and he printed out today, or sent it to me today. I printed it out in my work office, and it's sitting on my printer at work. But I have the email, but we went through and looked at all the different things that tourism money can be used for, and what MSRC's recommendation as well. So there's an opportunity for both, I think, funding from the tourism monies for advertising and that type of thing, and then there's also an opportunity for funding on capital structures and stuff like that, and it goes back to operations of the event. So kind of some of the stuff that we talked about last year, where we could put a sound system out of tourism money and that kind of stuff. So there's an opportunity for funding there. Last year, they never came to council asking for any funding. So, and the same thing can happen with Earth Day for advertising. Anything to advertise the event, we could use tourism.
Okay, that's great.
Council pleasure? Thank you.
Thank you.
Lance, you're up. Stewart Road, change order number 6.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. The packet before you and tonight's information related to this change order, as you may recall, about a month ago, I had spoke about a change order that was coming forward that would result in some cost savings. This is that particular change order. And so the details of the change order are encapsulated in the resolution for the action 2015-30. The contractor has detailed what that change order proposal is. And to summarize the change order, it's a change in the construction method. The contractor has proposed a method to save some money, and that is they will excavate at not as deep as was originally planned and was bid on the project. So the gravel borrow, both at the lower end and at the upper end, there's some cost savings related to that, just for labor, time, material, as well as proposing a different material, a geogrid instead of the fabric and the over-excavation. and then having the analysis to look through this, city engineer and the contract firm evaluated the proposal, and it does comply with the geotechnical report that was done as part of the design work for the project. So with this proposed change, the overall change is approximately $55,000, but because there's federal money involved, and there is a very detailed and proscribed process for change orders, the contractor is entitled to recover 50% of the proposed changes. And that is straight out of the Washington Department of Transportation manual that we have to follow and comply with as part of this project. So the savings to the city, I'm sorry, I have to put my glasses on for this, if you accept the change order, is $27,658.75. I'll summarize that is a significant change. We also pick up 3 days on the project, so that's an added bonus for us. With that, I'll stop if there's any questions.
Councilor Jones.
I was looking at the design that was part of the package. I know we meet the standards, but will the reduction of depth and the grounds that'll fill up that area, will that in the long term show us some kind of deterioration on that road in the long run, the amount of traffic we're expecting to see going across it?
That's a great question, council member, and the city engineer had investigated this at length, and the GeoGrid material, we believe, will perform as well as the original method that was proposed. So we think the settling, we don't expect to see any additional settling from this method versus the originally proposed method.
I'm glad you explained why the contractor gets half, because I was totally against that. Because if it goes over budget, they want us to pay, and if it goes under budget, they want to split the savings with us. That didn't make sense to me. And the concern I have is if this is a new method, you're saying if we do it the way it was originally contracted, we know it's going to be done right because we have historical practices that say this is the acceptable way to do it. Now we're going to something new that's going to create some savings, but if it's not proven and it does deteriorate further than what we would anticipate, then that's something that we would have to go in and fix, and so this cost savings could be moot, and it could end up costing us money in the long run. I guess that's what assurances do we have that this new technique and this GeoGrid is as good or better than the original plan?
Good question, and let me clarify. Maybe I wasn't clear enough in my summary, but the geotechnical report and the specialists that were hired to do the design work with the Skilling Conley folks, this was one of the methods that they evaluated. And so it's not a brand new method. It was part of the original evaluation of the geotechnical. It was either option A or option B, and when Skilling's looked at this, they chose the other option. But this was a tried and true method that is acceptable, and it's not like we're cutting edge or doing something brand new. It was looked at originally, but just not selected. And I can't speak to the reasons specifically why Skilling's went that particular route.
Other questions from council? What's the council's pleasure? Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, council.
We have Agenda Bill 15-017. Take it away.
Good evening. The resolution that's before you is to purchase 3 2015 police cars. And I know that when I turned my budget proposal to council, we went over this, the need for new vehicles, but we've now come the time to order them. And I think in your packet, there's documentation, or not documentation, but a complete list of all the equipment that's gonna be, that has been on, or it was not been ordered, but that will be ordered for the cars.
Questions from the council? Councilman Jones?
Interesting choice of vehicle. What chose the, from a standard cruiser, so to speak, to the SUV type?
There were, started with the state patrol, there were studies done on this particular vehicle. It's all-wheel drive, but the performance and the longevity, and there's a lot of the state patrol started it now. Several agencies are going through this and getting away from the cruiser. And because of the room inside, it fits a bigger officer better than like a Charger does.
So it's interesting, it's all-wheel drive. That's be an added benefit all year round.
Yes.
But since it's an SUV, with the trunk being able to lock up, I know there's lots of equipment and accessories in the trunk of a cruiser. How is that going to be secured in the SUV, you know?
I know that in some of them, I've looked at some of the ways they're set up, and they have a, kind of like a covering, you pull back, it rolls back, and covers what's underneath. So I don't know if it's as secure, but
Councilman Garvin?
I have that same covering, and all it is a piece of vinyl that comes over and flips in. I think what he's getting at is it's secure to where you cannot get into the vehicle and access whatever it is you have back there. It is literally just a vinyl, it's like the window covering kind of pulled over, but what's to keep somebody from breaking a window and taking whatever, as opposed to it being in the trunk of a car. The trunk is harder to access.
my point of the cover was that you can't see into what's underneath that cover.
Right.
And as far as secure, I guess I don't know the answer as far as, we've never had trunks pried open, and Auburn and Snoqualmie, they've all been driving Suburbans for years. I mean, Suburban Tahoes, and I've never heard of a break-in.
It's just something that came to my mind, that whether police departments that are using the SUVs nowadays have come to more of a secure compartment in the back. I know that some of the security firms that use SUVs have more of a locked compartment where they have their weapons and stuff like that. You know, so if somebody got into the vehicle, they still couldn't get into that area without having to seriously destroy that unit. Something maybe we might want to look at.
Those are options. There are companies that build a safe, like you just described.
Yeah.
We didn't do that into our bid.
Maybe something to look at.
I'm trying to find, is this for a six-cylinder or eight-cylinder?
Six-cylinder.
Councilman Steiger?
Well, I have one question here, that's kind of curious. Why are we bringing a resolution forward, or ordering, or whatever, we approved it in the budget? I mean, why haven't they been ordered? Why are we doing this?
Code says you have to.
I would direct that to John.
I would direct that to the church.
Well, I'll say it's best practice for the city to do that. Not every city does, but in a case where we're purchasing a significant asset, if number one, if the price goes over what we have in the budget, we want to bring it to your attention. This is marginal because we put $150,000 in, so it's up to 162. So that's one reason you need to look at it. And the questions you have tonight, you didn't really know at that time what choice of vehicle we were going to have. So we wouldn't bring everything in front of you, but something like this, if you don't want us to, I'm okay with that. If that's what you want to do. But yeah, we've always brought it in front of council, and so that's what I was told, and so it's just standard, operating procedure.
It's in the code.
As far as when we're going to get it, well, we're just now in the second month of the budget cycle, and so we spent a lot of January getting everything together so we could bring it forward. So, I mean, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think I'd like to continue to do this kind of stuff. I mean,
I thought you would.
wherever.
I have a question. These two cars that you are requesting are the ones from, what was it, November? Okay, well, I know that with, who was it, Boz blew up his engine. How does he fit into this? From what, it's my understanding that right now, he's driving around in a very unreliable vehicle, and we can't have that. So is he gonna take priority over these?
We are replacing Boss's car, and the car Stevens is driving, they're both 6.5 years old, and the car Boss is driving was on the, right now, that's not in real good shape. That was on the schedule to be replaced, but we held off for another year.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is the two cars that we've authorized that we're getting, and we're putting the third one on hold, is that putting Bos's car in priority? It's my understanding that he's driving around in a car that Stephanie got stuck on a ferry in Bremerton and had to ride the ferry back and forth before they get going again. We can't have him running around in an unreliable vehicle.
No, he said he's gonna get a vehicle, and Stevens is gonna get a vehicle.
Okay.
So then that's where the two will go.
This is on our, and has anyone looked into whether instead of replacing Bos's car, I don't know mechanics at all, so don't yell at me for the question, can they just replace the engine in it instead of having to redress an entire new car with all of the police gear that goes on it? Can they just put a new engine in that one?
Well, I've got the numbers that we spent on that car, and in 2014, we spent close to $3,000, and then it went down again when the motor seized up, and then Tom Matson Dodge was out there, and they told us it would be $8,000 to repair, and it's a 6.5-year-old car, and it's not worth it.
Other questions? Councilmember Jones?
Kind of already know the answer, but I wanted you to explain it. Why are we looking at an all-out purchase versus a payment plan?
Well, the payment plan, the way the timing sets up, we wouldn't be able to get the vehicles until June. So that's number one. Number two is I really want to try and get us removed from that if I can, so we can make all-out purchases, because that's cheaper, it saves us interest and payments every year for 4 years, or 5 years. And we can do this year, and we'll still have money left in the fund that we're building up. So we may have to, along the way, depending upon how John and I come to terms on replacing the other vehicles, have to use that contract again with the state. But I'm really trying to get us off of that, so it's just a simple purchase and replace. I think it'll save the city money in the long run. One thing John and I need to work with the mayor on is really looking at the life of the cars. I've talked to another city that they pushed theirs out to 6 years. I think the city used to be 5, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and so we pushed it out to 6 for now, and we want to see the wear and tear on the cars and what that looks like in replacing it over a 6-year or a 5-year, which is more advantageous, and how we cannot have buying like 5 at a time, which is what we were looking at. I want to spread it out so it can be even over a certain amount of years, so the city doesn't take one big hit 1 year and then not a hit the next year, where it can just be even and then go forward. So we have a schedule now that John and his staff helped put together on replacing the cars and other assets for the police department, and I'm going to work on that with him, and we'll bring it to council by budget cycle, or before then, I was probably in a budget retreat to talk about what we're going to be looking forward to, and probably put it out like, okay, this is next year and then the next 5 years, so that you'll understand what the replacement schedule looks like.
Yeah, that's something that we spoke about at the finance committee level last year, early in the year, how we replace vehicles, and that was one of the things that came up, is we replace them in these big blocks. One, it requires us to not buy them outright, so we're forced to pay payments, but if we can get set up where we're buying 1 or 2 a year and cycle it properly, this is an expected cost every year. We know it's there, it's in the budget, or when we buy it, we start buying them outright, and suddenly we need to make a big purchase, and we do have to buy them outright because we can afford it. Then we try to build the fund back up, and that money's sitting there not being used, and some people might come in and go, well, this money isn't being used, we'll do this, and then we'll just pay payments on the next batch, and so it becomes this kind of self-defeated program, and that this way, if you have a set replacement schedule, it makes more sense to go ahead and budget for it, pay for them outright, save the citizens the money, we're not paying interest on them, and they have a set schedule. You know when this is when they come into service, this is when they go out, and, you know, barring, you know, some catastrophic emergency, a car crash, or an engine failure or something like that, that's not covered by insurance, you know, these are anticipated costs that we can absorb on a yearly basis, and I think it makes sense to do it this way.
That's for a second.
Well, this is why we try to establish an equipment replacement fund. And then that money is in there to replace equipment, not to build valuable homes.
Yep.
And Richard, you know, it's a vehicle replacement fund, right? It's not equipment replacement?
It's actually a whole equipment replacement, but it's capital equipment, so it's just like the utilities equipment replacement fund. Right, so we don't put small items in there at all, those go in their individual operating funds. So, but I do want to talk with council about this. There is some policies in place. We may need to put more teeth in these policies so that another, you know, whatever council can come along, or a mayor, and say, I want to use this money for, like you're saying, building something else, or use it. So we really try to stick with it being for vehicles, for capital equipment, and that's why I want to get away from the lease program, and if it works. It may take a couple of years to work it out. This year I know it's going to work. I believe this is our last year of payment on the current batch of cars we have, and so that'll give us some wiggle room next year to use the 120 we pay every year to continue to replace cars. So I think it'll work.
And that's dedicated money into the capital, or to the equipment replacement fund?
Yes, but the money that's being spent on the lease comes out of the general fund, so this will help the general fund too. It already transfers money to that other fund, the equipment replacement fund.
Because the money that came in for the vehicles was originally from, I'm gonna forget the fund.
Criminal justice.
Criminal justice.
Right.
But that goes general fund now?
Yeah, and then we transfer straight to the equipment replacement fund. Probably more than what comes in that.
So, I have a question that, I just wanted to get council's opinion too. We hadn't really talked about car versus SUV or anything like that, and I'm not hearing any discussion, and so I was hoping, to hear if that's the direction council wants to go. Do you want to see cars, do you want to see SUVs? I mean, I'm not hearing anything against this, but I just wanted to make sure we're having that conversation too.
I have a question. Councilman Gay?
Well, this was a topic of conversation at the Public Safety Committee meeting, I think somewhat at the Finance Committee meeting, and then it was discussed during the budget process. This was proposed, and one of the benefits of this particular vehicle was average longevity was a year longer than the patrol vehicles. We had concerns from the audience that stated they wanted to see more capability in inclement weather. This also provides for that. Unfortunately, other options that the audience proposed was greener vehicles, but they don't make very good pursuit vehicles, so that's why we're going this option. So we at least beat some of the demands that the citizens have brought to our attention. I think it's a good option. I don't think we should rule out patrol cars altogether. Maybe a traffic vehicle could still be a patrol vehicle, or maybe have a pursuit vehicle available in the event that we would need it. But, I mean, we're a small city and our streets are kind of small, and you know, how much speed do we need? And we're kind of set up to be able to utilize these types of vehicles better than a pursuit vehicle, I think.
I would like to say this is a little bit greener because it's a 6-cylinder versus the 8-cylinder that we typically have for a police.
Cylinders on vehicles don't necessarily mean that they're gas mileage.
Yeah.
Well, this issue that's coming up right now was all discussed in workshop last year. We talked about pursuit vehicles, we talked about Suburban, we talked about the new little Ford, and we talked about all this choices and everything else last year. We came to agreement that we wanted to go with the SUVs and try the Ford.
I'm sorry, so when you say pursuit vehicle, I guess, so do we just take only one person on duty? Is it going to be having a pursuit vehicle, we're only going to pursue, I mean, do you see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I think.
Or assigned to the officers, right?
I can explain that.
Okay, I mean, it's like, I guess I just wanted clarification on that. I'm not saying I have a problem with it, I'm just making sure that we vet this before we move forward.
These vehicles are pursuit rated. all the agencies are driving them. They've used, well, I don't know, every agency's gotten a pursuit with them, but several agencies, State Patrol, has been in several pursuits with these vehicles. They're not as fast, but suspension is made as a pursuit vehicle, just as are the Chargers.
And I would just suggest that, you know, our pursuits compared to a state patrol pursuit on the freeway are quite different in that its ability to get from 0 to 60 and, you know, 4 seconds for a Charger versus 5 seconds for one of these, or 6 seconds, might not be that big a deal, but 60 miles an hour is probably as fast as you're going to drive on any of our city streets, if you're lucky to ever even hit that speed.
Well, but they don't stop at the border. I mean, if they get on the freeway, we're gonna.
I get, but we also have a pursuit policy that does restrict how we pursue and under what conditions we pursue as well. That's why we call ahead to other agencies. We might pursue or back off and follow, and then allow someone else to come in, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Tom?
When we enter another jurisdiction, they have the option, but in some, like Auburn, they do not get involved in our pursuits. So we go to the end unless State Patrol happens to get involved.
I would like to say that I really like the idea that we have a few four-wheel drive vehicles that in the event there's a mudslide, road closures, tough roads to get up to the West Hill, we've got the ability to do that. I like that.
Question, or you're answering her question?
No, I'm not I would also say that by buying, instead of buying a big massive chunk of them, 5 or 6 at a time, by buying 3, we have a chance to make sure that they're going to work. And so when we go to replace the round of vehicles next year, I'm assuming we'll probably be down to 2 or 3 next year, that we have a chance to look at these. They will suit some of our needs, because we already know that we have needs on the West Hill during inclement weather. And so having at least put these through the ringer for a year and a half before we buy the next round might tell us whether we should continue down this path or go back to the old way.
Can we just rent them for a few months? I'm going to ask my question, because everybody else has gone a couple times. And I am the chair, so let's do it. Since these are all-wheel drive and they have a higher center of gravity, do our officers have to go through additional EOC training?
No, and they aren't the same height as a regular SUV. It's like the Tahoe that Lieutenant Massey drives. It's lowered and it's suspended for police pursuit driving. There won't be any need to retrain.
Even with the all-wheel drive, because it's going to be a difference.
Those Chargers have the all-wheel, they have a bus or a option to turn them into all-wheel drive. And when we go through the course of it, SIR, they do it both ways.
Okay. And then, I think we talked about this, but do we have to have an actual replacement schedule built out? I mean, the council's seen, I don't remember seeing one.
I've prepared, I've had one for years, and when we decided to try to do less cars per year, I prepared a schedule for Rich, and he's got it, that we can share with council.
Okay. And then for you're looking to buy 2 now, and a third one eventually, what's the third one contingent on? Is that the new officer?
We've got, we're ordering 3 is what we were asking for right now. But Rich he wants to order that car when we need it, and that is if we get another officer.
So how long is it going to take them to get ready?
2 months probably.
Okay. And how long is an officer in the academy for?
We won't go to right now you can't get in the academy for 7 months.
So you're hiring
If we hire somebody, it would be a lateral.
and
full
how long is
experience.
it doubled up?
3 months, 3 months.
So, okay, so we could order one when they're hired and still have time to go to the vehicle.
Yes.
And then how many officers do we have right now, and how many vehicles do we have, counting the 2 that we're replacing? Everybody's got their own car?
Yeah, we do, but 2 of them, one we should not be driving, but we are. And so there are 9 officers, 9 from the lieutenant on down, and there's
cost difference between a police car like we've done buying as opposed to this SUV? What's the difference in price, approximately?
They're really close. The base price is all we look at because the equipment's the same.
Right.
I think the base price is 26 something for a Charger. I can't,
I thought these were maybe slightly cheaper.
yeah, I don't have.
20,000.
Okay, I'm not finding it. What type of a car is, I know it's a Ford. What is
Ford
it?
Explorer.
It's an Explorer, okay. You know, it could be a P.C.S.
There's a picture of it in there.
I see it, but it looks like mine, and mine's in the States. They look so similar.
Councilor Roller.
So if we have 3 that we want to order, but we order 2 now and 1 6 months from now, for the warranty, does the warranty date start with first order or delivery? Okay.
Yes.
Making sure.
Other questions from council? Other random statements from council?
You want random statements?
What's the council's pleasure?
Move forward.
Move it forward.
Thank you.
Careful with that.
Thanks, John.
Emotional outburst. Richard, you're up.
I'm up, all right. Okay. Talking about getting agenda bills. 15018, this is membership dues for AWC. Bring this over here. Oh, by the way, good evening. Okay, let me get to that one, there it is. So the city received the invoice for AWC for continuing membership in the organization, which has been going on